All right, guys, today we're here to talk about Frost Death Knight, and I wasn't going to make a video this early because we got a whole ass domain expansion added. If you haven't seen it, here's a clip. No, I need you, and I need him. There we go. Dude, I mean, we got Pain Sub, we got Barrier. Bro, what? What? What is this? Frost is a little gimmicky right now, but I've been getting a lot of questions about should I run the new talents? Which tier set pieces do I grab? Does this change our opener? Is LeBron still doing it? He absolutely is, but I will make a guide where I go through how Frost is doing right now, so you too can be moving like Conquest in the new Invincible episode. Spoiler alert. If anything changes, I will go back, I will leave a pinned comment, I will make a new video and give you an update. Let's dive right into it. Alright, we're going to start off with talents, and I'm not going to talk too much about them. I'm going to just sort of say what has changed. If you weren't running Grip of the Dead before, you need to be running it now. We have lost our AoE stun with Remorseless Winter. So anything that you can take to snare people, slow people, keep people in your go, you are going to take, which is why you will also now take Abomination Limb. Abomination Limb does shadow damage, not shadow frost, so it doesn't do a lot of damage or scale with your mastery, but you still take it just to keep people near you. Deathbringer versus Rider of the Apocalypse. I've tried it so many times because I think it's so cool, but Deathbringer sucks. The damage is very low, and Runecarved Plates has a negative PvP modifier, so at full stacks, it still is less of a wall than a single Rider of the Apocalypse. Frost has a 207% Frost Strike buff in PvP, so this talent right here, a Feast of Souls, where you get 20% increased damage when you have 2 or more riders active, is very good. Rider of the Apocalypse, hands down better. For the Frost Tree, you have 2 options. You can either go with this, what you ran the last season, or if you want to roll higher mastery and less crit, you play this. So this is a little more one-shotty. You're not going to stay in the fight nearly as much with this, but it's an option. If you like playing in the fight a little bit more and playing a little more crit, this option's still good. Don't get me wrong, it still scales with mastery, it's still very good with mastery, but you have 2 options. Mess around with them, see which one you like more, but those are your options for this season. PvP talents, I'm going to talk a little bit about your options here. Delirium you can run in maybe a Battlegrounds or something. I don't get a whole lot of value out of Delirium. Everyone has so much mobility now. They don't really notice. But to each his own. Shroud of Winter sucks, you never run it. Dark Simulacrum could be good into some specific things. If you are a gamer, you can go ahead and grab things like Bubble, which is very powerful, Cyclone, which is very powerful, but you need to have some pretty high awareness or get very lucky to use this talent well, so it may not be as consistent. Strangulate, always very good. Having a silence, an instant silence, very, very good. Bitter Chill, it's alright. We're not really struggling to keep Chains of Ice on people, and people have more stats this season, so reducing their haste by that much isn't that big of a deal. Rotten Wither sucks, you never take it. Bloodforged Armor, it sounds very good, and I really want it to be good, but it's just not. You lose so much offensive pressure by pressing Deathstrike to begin with, that losing a PvP talent for that as well is just like, you're dying slower. Spell Warden, listen, a lot of people run this. A lot of people really like this. I'm not saying it's a bad talent. No, it's a good talent. You can put AMS on your teammates. You can stop traps with AMS. You can put AMS on your teammate after they get stunned by a hunter and stop a trap from hitting them. Listen, man, I'm using this every time that I am pressing Pillar of Frost to make sure I don't get CC'd. I'm not, I'm not giving that to anybody else. So I don't run this. Little selfish, but hey. Death Chill, very good. It removes Chains of Ice, which kind of sucks. A lot of the Death Knight talents have drawbacks. I'm not quite sure the design philosophy there, but it's a root. And if you can't stun people with Remorse's Winter, you may as well root them. Death's Cold Embrace, you saw the clip. This is very, 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 I don't want to say mandatory. I don't like it. I don't like the design of this, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. But it is a very high output talent. And every spec in the game is doing such high output, you're really nerfing yourself by not trying to at least match their output. Foregoing an output talent is very tough. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about stats and which tier set pieces that you want to grab. For tier set, the pieces that you will want are going to be head, shoulders, chest, and hands. You do not want legs, okay? The reason you don't want legs is it is crit and mastery. And if you play Unholy and you want to be swapping between them, it's just not, crit is not a good stat for Unholy. For Frost stats, Frost likes crit because it gives Killing Machine procs. And if you're running this talent tree right here, it increases the duration of Pillar of Frost, and you get some auto attack, critical strike damage as well. So, Frost likes crit. It also likes haste. Haste will make sure that you get enough global cooldowns off during Pillar of Frost. It also gives you Killing Machine procs. And it feels good. Playing low haste, it sucks. I don't like it. And I'll go over the exact stats in a second, but Mastery increases all of your frost damage. All of your stuff is frost damage, except for Obliterate outside of Pillar of Frost, which you're not really, that doesn't do anything anyways. It's just a flat output stat. And with your high output PvP talent right now being Death's Cold Embrace, having more frost damage is very good. And last but not least, we have versatility. Versatility, it's good, but the reason it was really good in PvP was that there was a trinket bonus with versatility. It's still very good in PvP, but you don't need a ton of it. So if you want to check your PvP stats, you can come over here and hit the PvP dummies, and that will scale you up in PvP. You can look at your stats. So for Critical Strike, if you are running this build right here, for Critical Strike, the stats that you're going to want are about 11 to 13% crit. You are going to want at least 20% haste. Mastery, you're going to want as high as you can go. And versatility, you're going to want somewhere between 17 and 20%. Should feel good. Now, it's going to be high at first, your versatility. And the reason it's going to be high at first is because you won't have a lot of crafted gear yet. You're going to have honor gear. Don't worry too much about this, okay? Focus on getting your set pieces. Do not buy weapons yet, because your weapons you will get when you reach 2,500 conquest accumulated. Alright, so we're going to go over the Frost Death Knight opener. So in case you aren't familiar, what you want to do is you want to grip the healer in using Death Grip to another DPS. You are going to want to blind them. You are going to want to drop Death and Decay. And you are going to want to press Pillar of Frost and Frostworm's Fury to stun them, start doing damage, and as soon as that stun runs out, you are going to want to use your silence on the healer so that there are no gaps in the CC. So that way they are stunned into a silence and they cannot heal for an extended period of time. During that time, you are just going to use Obliterate to cleave, because when in Death and Decay, Obliterate is going to hit all of the targets that are in Death and Decay. And then at 5 stacks of Razor Ice, you are going to press Frost Strike, and that does a ton of damage. When you're hitting these target dummies, if you look at the breakdown, it's not accurate, okay? These target dummies don't have armor, they don't have versatility, and they also don't have all the PvP mods. So Frost Strike PvP mod, for example, isn't on there. So don't worry too much about the damage if you're testing out your rotation, but again, you're gripping in the healer, you are blinding the targets, keep Chains of Ice on them, drop Death and Decay, you are going to press Pillar of Frost, Frostworm's Fury if you have it. Hopefully your teammates are stunning too, and silence as soon as the healer comes out of the stun. So you're just sort of rotating, pressing your buttons as they light up. It's a pretty simple rotation for Frost Go. It's just getting that go off that can be a little tricky. Now, what are you doing in between your go? So if you are the kill target, you are keeping Chains of Ice on the targets, you are kind of kiting them a little bit. And whenever you can get a 5-stack Frost Strike, you are going and hitting them, sort of backing off a little bit, respecting their cooldowns. If they have cooldowns up, you cannot trade with them. You will die. Your sustained damage is not very high. And you're just kind of waiting for your next Pillar of Frost go, making sure that you're keeping Chains of Ice on the targets. Don't use your grip unless you need to, so that you can save it for your next go. Use your death charge instead. That's pretty much it. If you guys have questions about the rotation or anything, just let me know. I'm also happy to do a VOD review or anything like that if anyone is curious about, are they doing something wrong? They're just not seeing the damage that they want to be seeing, that sort of thing. So, I wanted to talk about the design of Death's Golden Embrace, why I don't really like it. So, Frost Death Knight, a lot of players have been giving feedback for years in PvP that Frost Death Knight is much more fun when it is able to stay in the fight and do damage and feel like a slow-moving juggernaut. However, this it nailed the slow-moving part. However, Frost Death Knight is pretty weak to physical damage outside of its Icebound Fortitude, and like I said earlier, when you press Death Strike, you lose a bunch of offensive pressure because you could be pressing Frost Strike. Now, Death's Cold Embrace, the problem with this is that you are sort of running away. You are keeping distance because your sustained damage is very low. You are trying to avoid fighting the enemy team because you are going to just make your healer mad because they are going to do more damage than you. Then, when the cooldowns are back, you are going to try to use grips and Chains of Ice and Abomination Limb, everything you can to keep them inside of your go and try and one-shot them. And this is pretty toxic. It's not very fun for the enemy team. It's very frustrating for you because at high level, people are just going to get away. It's very, very obvious when you are pressing your cooldowns. Now, my recommendation, because I don't want to complain without giving feedback, Blizzard, what I would recommend is that you reduce the Pillar of Frost cooldown is increased by 15 seconds. Remove that. Okay? You already have a drawback by being very slow. Pillar of Frost being 1 minute when you have to already take a talent in the main tree to reduce the cooldown, and then you're taking a PvP talent to increase the cooldown. Nobody wants to play a 1 minute spec in 2025. Everyone has 30-second goes or 45-second go. Demon Hunter now has a 20-second go with I-Beam. I mean, it's just very, it's a long time of not interacting. Just like sitting in crowd control, nobody likes sitting there not interacting. So, what I would recommend is that you either remove that, the cooldown increase, and maybe sometimes you would still run this into some comps, and maybe other times it's not worth it because of the slow. But the other recommendation, if you really wanted to impress me specifically, okay? This needs a redesign. Just damage, extra damage, that is not healthy for Frost, because by increasing the damage during our cooldown windows so much, it's really hard to buff our sustain. You've been having this issue for years where Frost Death Knight has very little sustained damage, very high burst because of the way that it is designed. So having just a high output talent, uh, it's not. I don't think it really hit the mark. What I think you could do instead of this is to apply. Remorseless Winter just applies a necrotic wounds effect. It applies a healing absorb effect, and this would do two things. One, it would encourage Frost to stay in the fight because Remorseless Winter is a 20-second cooldown. Every 20 seconds, you want to be popping that, putting an AoE healing absorb on the enemy team. It would help Frost be tanky. It would help Frost stay in the fight. And it would still give pressure without needing to, have this crazy burst damage and low sustain. You could tune much easier with some sort of utility like that added. The other thing about that, it would still be different from Unholy because maybe it stacks higher or faster during that 20-second cooldown, but Unholy is still the sustain spec because it still has the ability to apply necrotic wounds permanently throughout the entire game. So they still have their identities there. You have a little bit of a 20-second burst, and then a little bit of a bigger burst on your 45-second pillar cooldown. So you would have some pretty good solid goes every 20, 30 seconds, instead of running around for a minute at a time and then trying to one-shot them while roleplay walking. That would be my feedback. Blizzard, if you're watching, I don't know. Probably not, but that's my recommendation. Listen, I really love this class, and I hope they do something cool with it. See what they were going for. I just don't know if they missed. I don't know if they hit the mark there. All right, guys. Well, that's the Frost Guide. If you have any questions, if you have any recommendations of things that you'd want to see, go ahead and leave a comment below. By my Twitch, you can ask me these questions. We can actually have a conversation about it. And the other thing, I'm thinking about doing some VOD reviews. So if anyone has, any sort of clips that they want me to take a look at or break down on YouTube, that would be super cool. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys soon.